welcome to the Marketing and Branding Leaders Knowledge Summit. Hey, it's exciting to have you with us today. We're going to be talking about today's topic is 3 steps to reinforce your business now. In the midst of everything that's going on with COVID and all the changes in business and social distancing and all the rest, what can you do right now to help your business excel as we move out of this? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. There we go. 3 steps to reinforce your business now. The real simple fact of the matter is that there is opportunity that will come from all of this. And I know it's a horrible situation around the world, but opportunities will come. And when those opportunities arrive, it'll be too late to prepare. So time to prepare is now. Time to take stock of what your business needs will be moving forward is now. We want to make the best of these new opportunities. And that's what today's session is about, to try and help you to really consider, well, what is next? What's next for our industries? What's next for our businesses? What's next for our brands? You know, the COVID-19 has impacted every business, really, and impacted the way that people engage with businesses, interact with businesses. And what's going to happen as we get either back to normal or, as they say, back to the new normal, when businesses are able to start opening again, people are able to get back to work again. Well, nobody really knows for sure, of course, exactly what's going to happen, but we do know that a different way of doing business is here to stay. So a great way to get prepared for what's next is to really leverage one of the strongest assets you have, and that's your brand, your company brand. It's important to think about that because, you know, the competition is probably already doing that. Your competition may be gearing up right now, and so should you, so you don't get left behind. So when it comes time to start working in your business again, you'll have made the most out of working on your business now. So today, I will be your presenter. I'm Glenn Van Deusen. I love branding. Branding and marketing has been my entire career, 35 plus years now in marketing and branding. I've developed entrepreneurial businesses from the ground up, and I've led global businesses worth over $100 million to success and been able to double and triple and quadruple the size of businesses, in large part because of a belief that when you make your brand stronger, you can make your whole business better. A brand can help you to sell more while spending less. A brand can help you accelerate growth. It can allow you to stop wasting marketing money on initiatives that aren't working as powerfully as they could because you haven't refined your brand message, your brand story, your brand promise as tightly as you could. And ultimately, we know that, you know, a brand has the incredible potential to create this image, this perception of who you are as a business, and create such a powerful impression that people will insist on working with you. Not only will you be a good choice, but you'll be the best choice and maybe even the only choice for them. So what we want to do is talk about how to get your brand to predispose people to want to work with you, or even to do business with you, or even work for you in the case of your brand engaging with employees and prospective employees as we move forward. I guess maybe first off is just a very basic definition of what is a brand, since we're going to be talking about how to use your brand to build your business. Well, a brand, to me, my definition is that a brand is a perception, a brand is a promise, and a brand is a reassurance of trust, right? It's not just a name and a logo and a positioning. It's not just your culture. It's not just the way you talk about and present yourselves. It's all of those things. It's all of those things combined. It's that whole customer experience, that member experience, that employee experience. This is my favorite definition. Maybe you've got one too. In fact, we have a chat room open. So if you have some questions as we go through this today, please type them into the chat, and I promise I will read every one of those at the end after our session today. So by all means, feel free to use the chat as we move through. The 3 steps that you can take right now: 1, assess the market and the competitive landscape as it now exists. So you can really identify where to best leverage your advantages. Two, define what it is that makes your brand special. So you're perceived as the best choice. So people say, that's the brand, that's the company, that's the business that I want to do my business with. That's the group that I want to be engaged with. And then third, create a brand communication guide, right? So that every dollar that you spend is used more effectively. So that everybody that touches your brand, whether it's you as maybe you're a solopreneur, right? Or maybe you've got a small business of just a few people, or maybe you've got a huge organization and dozens of people in your marketing group. Doesn't matter. Everybody that touches your business, everybody that has anything to do with creating that brand impression, those brand communications, that brand experience, that customer experience, will now be able to follow the same process, use the same language, you leave the same impression, right? Create that experience for everybody. So creating a real tight communication guide that you can share with everyone is the last of the 3 steps we'll cover today, and how important that can be to your overall business. Here's on our first topic: assess the customer journey. Now, what's a customer journey? Well, it's really just a fancy way of saying the steps that a person takes in making a purchase decision. That's a customer journey. The question I have for you, of course, is do you really need to kind of rethink that whole journey today? Things change so much in the last couple of months now that maybe that journey is very different for people than it was before. And if so, how do you adapt? How do you evolve? Have your business kind of stay in tune with that journey that customer is taking? Have there been fundamental shifts in the way that people consume your products or your services that you now need to kind of take into consideration? And, really, are the things that were important just a couple of months ago still as important? Or maybe there's something different. I'll give you a perfect example. There's a company that we are working with recently and looking at their brand and how to elevate their brand to build their business. This is a company that does consulting for organizations. They consult on how to bring innovation into your company, how to make innovation a culture, how to make innovation a driver of your business. And the owner of the business was saying to me, I always used to go in and talk about how the service that we provide, the consulting service we provide, really can help our clients excel, how they can succeed, how they can accelerate their success. And he said, I can't do that anymore. I can't talk to them that way. I mean, what I do, the services he was telling me that they offer are still the same, but he can't talk about it in that way because that's not where that member's head is. That's not where the journey that they're on now. The journey that they're on now is, how do I survive? Not how do I thrive? How do I survive? Right? How do I get through the next month? How do I get through the next couple of weeks? How do I reinforce my brand to be able to come out of this strong? How do I, really protect my business? So this whole language of talking to that customer has had to evolve, has had to change based on what's happened in the market. So that's just one example of kind of looking at your customer journey right now and seeing what might need to be adjusted. I'll give you a little bit of an amusing story here. Years ago, I was with the Disney organization and talking about how they engage with their customers, their guests at their resort locations in Florida. And they were describing how the people that will greet you when you drive up, and this was at the Grand Floridian, if any of you have been there, the Grand Floridian Hotel at Disney World in Florida. And they were saying that if they see a car pull up and it has Florida license plates and it's a fairly new car and everyone inside is happy and excited and big smiles on their faces, then they run out and they're, yay, we're so glad you're here and welcome and come right in and get you your tickets and get you over to the park. Right? Let's get you into some rides and just bubbly and enthusiastic. Then if they see the next car drive up and it's got, let's say, Michigan license plates, and the people in the car are like very tired and not terribly happy to be with one another much longer. And the poor person driving has their arm hanging out the window and it's all sunburned from being out the window for the last 2 or 3 days as they made their long trek down to Florida, then they walk out with compassion and with understanding, and they talk quietly. And there's no rah rah, there's no excitement. It's, oh, we're so glad you're here. Let me help you get settled in your room. Let me get you something cool to drink. Don't worry about things. We'll take care of it for you now. And it's a very, very different experience because that customer's journey, literal journey, that customer's journey is very, very different than that first customer. So Disney is masters at customer engagement, obviously, and right down to the individual customer, right? How do they adapt that communication? How do they adapt that customer experience for each person? So that's a suggestion for you, right? As you look at how the journey is changing for your customers right now and where you see it going, what might you need to do in terms of how you engage with that customer moving forward? The other suggestion in terms of looking at the market is to consider some market research. You know, everyone's adopting new daily routines right now. They are affecting, really everything that we do. So how do those changes impact your ability to sell your products and services? Have customer attitudes and behaviors really fundamentally changed for you in this, quote, new normal? And really, I would suggest you kind of look at, when was the last time you used kind of voice of the customer, or if you've heard that term, right? Listen to the voice of your customer. What have they told you in terms of market research findings? When was the last time you looked at how they became aware of your company, how they first tried your products, how they perhaps first purchased your products, who were the influencers on those purchases? We always talk about there's the user, there's the buyer, and sometimes there's the influencer, and sometimes those are all three completely different people. So what is it that drives those different groups? What is it that keeps them loyal once they've tried you, once they've had an experience with you? Now, you don't have to go out necessarily and do big, exhaustive, weeks and months long research studies. These can be done very, very simply. These could be done very inexpensively. We have done research for some clients where budgets were very tight or timing was very tight, and we've been able to finish them in a week. And we did them over the phone. We kept the costs to a bare bones minimum. We've done others where we've been in research for 6, 8, 10 months, around the world doing qualitative and quantitative studies among thousands of people. So every business is different. But what works for your business is something you need to determine, but I would suggest that you find a way to get some customer feedback. It doesn't matter what you think of your brand. What matters is what your customer thinks of your brand, because you don't own your brand, right? Your customer owns that brand up here in their head. It's that perception, right? It's that promise. It's that reassurance of trust. Those are all things that exist in the minds of your customers. That's where the brand resides. So, it's great to have your thoughts on the brand, and we'll talk more about how that is an important step, but also look at getting some of those research insights from outside of your own head and from the voice of the customer as well. I would suggest that, as a couple tips here, what are the things that you need to know? What are the things you really need to know to make good business decisions? And what are the things that once you know them, you'll be able to act upon? It makes no sense at all to do research on something you're never going to be able to act upon. You're just wasting time, you're wasting money. So again, what is it you need to know? What is it that once you know, you'll be able to act upon? And here's the good news. If you're going to be going out and doing some research, again, whether it's a big study with a research firm, like ours or others, or whether you're going to do this on your own through some simple phone calls or through maybe a free SurveyMonkey study, make sure that you really ask the right questions. Make sure that you're talking to the right people, and make sure that you're asking the questions in the right way. I mean, the people one is easy, right? You want to make sure that you're talking to the people that are either the user, the buyer, or the influencer, and understand what their roles are as they relate to your business. But you want to make sure you ask the questions the right way. And I've always said that bad research is more dangerous than no research at all. because bad research will lead you to believe with some degree of certainty that you should act in a particular way or take a particular step, when in fact maybe that's the wrong thing to do because the question wasn't asked properly. So I would encourage you to get somebody with some degree of expertise in research, if you're going to do a study, to take a look at your questionnaire, right? Gives you some feedback on the right ways to structure questions and ask questions. Now, the other good news right now is because people are stuck at home and they're bored, research is much, much easier and faster to do in the last couple of months. We've seen the research that we do online, our response rates to the research has gone up dramatically because people just desperately want something to do. Now is a good time to do that kind of market research. Assessing the market and the competition in terms of what direction are they heading and how are they kind of queuing up for success, and how are you doing that? You know, have any of your competitors kind of pivoted in a new direction recently? Have they pivoted in a particular way? And if so, do you need to do that too? Do you need to be a fast follower, you know, and pivot along with them? Or do you need to be a little more innovative and say, you know, they pivoted left, I'm going to pivot right, and carve out your own niche, carve out your own positioning? That's an important consideration. And the only way to really answer that well is to, again, take an assessment of where the market's going, what your competition's doing. Have you seen kind of a business shift in any fundamental way that you need to be thinking about? Again, another tip I would give you is don't just look at your own industry, right? Don't just look at your own category. Well, take the blinders off a little bit. Look beyond, right? So, I mean, we have had situations where a client we were working with that was in pharmaceuticals, and we had completed some work earlier with a client who had been in the fast food industry. And yet you would be amazed at how many times you could look at those two very, very different industries and yet see some parallels, because you're dealing with some basic human emotions. So it's some basic human attitudes and beliefs. So as you look at your market and you look at your competitors, also look outside your category a little bit. I mean, is there anybody that you have seen, any company you've seen do something recently where you say, you know, I got to give them credit. That was really smart. That was really good. That was really impressive. Okay, great. How do you do that too? Maybe that was a company that had nothing to do with your business, but you looked at it and said, boy, you know what, that was smart. I give them a lot of credit. Okay, how do you adapt that? How do you apply that? How do you take the lesson learned from what they've done and maybe do the same thing? Maybe it was even a competitor. You know, maybe you look at what your competitors have done and, you know, maybe you kick yourself saying, gosh, we should have done that first. Well, okay, you didn't. So maybe again, you become a good and even better fast follower, or you find a way to take what they did and up it, you know, one up them, right? And do it even a little bit better than they had done it. So again, look at the market, look at the competition, look outside your industry as well for ideas. The next one, and boy, I can't emphasize this one enough. Brand clarity and brand consistency are so important to helping you use your brand to build your entire business. It's kind of interesting with everybody cleaning houses these days, right? Every time we talk to friends of ours or have our little Zoom calls with them, they tell us about, you know, cleaning out closets and cleaning out spare rooms and cleaning out the basement and the attic and so forth. You know, people are getting rid of clutter. They're getting themselves organized. Well, here's my suggestion. Do the same thing with your business, right? Do the same thing with your brand. Get rid of the clutter. Get things organized. Take an inventory of all the things that you do with your brand today, right? With your business today. Think about all the different ways that you talk about your business today. Think about how, you know, the website, your social media presence, or pamphlets or brochures or employee training manuals, you know, whatever it is that you put out there into the world to talk about your business. What does it look like when you put it all together? Because sometimes various departments or individuals or different geographies, if you have a geographically diverse business, are given liberty to kind of do their own things and adapt their own styles and so on, which can certainly have some advantages of being very attuned to a specific market condition. But at the end of the day, if there's too many voices going on, then the clarity of your brand, the single takeaway about who you are as a business, starts to get really fuzzy, right? Starts to get very frayed. And what it does in doing that is it makes you look less together, if you will, less professional, less organized, and can actually start to jeopardize the trust that people put in your organization. I worked with a company a few years ago, and we did an exercise with their different country managers. We had people from 12 different countries come together because we're getting ready to do a global launch, a simultaneous global launch in 12 countries. And each of these countries up till that point had been given a fair amount of discretion in terms of how they told the world, their customers and prospective customers, about their products and services. So before we started this new global product launch, we said, you know what, we all have to get on the same page here. We all have to be saying the same thing, because what was happening is the customers were becoming more global, right? They were going to meetings in various countries. They were hearing speakers from different regions. They were going to global conferences. And as they talked to different people from around the company, they kept hearing different things. And they kept hearing the same product described in different ways and communicated in different ways. And started to think, well, gosh, I wonder if this company really knows what they're doing. I wonder, they seem to be kind of out of sync here. And it was really starting to jeopardize the trust that these customers placed in that company. So to help reinforce that point and to show how this clarity and consistency of message could be beneficial, we had these 12 country managers all come to an offsite. We met in Germany, actually, and I had a big ballroom set up, and we gave each of them a table, right? Kind of their convention booth, if you will, but it was a tabletop. And we asked them to bring together examples of all the things they were using in their markets today. And they put them all out. And then we had them walk around the room and visit the 11 other tables. So everybody went around the room. And at the end, they were shocked. They couldn't believe it. So they're like, oh my gosh, I felt like I just visited 12 different companies. I'm kind of lost here myself. I'm confused. Why are they saying that over here when I'm saying this over here? And it really drove home the point that if you want to build trust, if you want to build real value for your company, that everybody hears the same way, thinks the same way from a customer standpoint, then this is a great exercise. Step back, do this yourself. Get everything that you have, lay it out on the table or out on the floor, and just look at it and say, are we confusing people by the way that we're conveying our message about our company today? Or is it, does it look like a garage sale, which is like the group in Germany, it was like a flea market when we got done with it? Or is it telling one beautiful, consistent story? Like, walk into an Apple store anywhere in the world, buy a Coke anywhere in the world, walk into a Starbucks anywhere in the world. And that consistency and clarity of those brands is what makes those businesses, part of what makes those businesses so strong. So that would be my next tip for you. That's kind of what I wanted to cover in terms of assessing the market and the competitive landscape. So now let's talk about how to define what it is that makes your brand special. What are the strengths, or what we would call brand equities, which are basically the features and benefits of your brand, those equities, those things that you have that you can leverage? And one of the very first questions, which today, given everything that's been going on, is maybe you have to ask yourself, what business are you even in right now? Has that even shifted? Are you in a completely different business? There was an interesting story. I remember years ago, the CEO of Rolex was being interviewed, and the reporter said, well, what's your forecast for the timekeeping business in the next 12 to 24 months? And his answer was, I have no idea. I'm not in the timekeeping business. The reporter's like, well, what do you mean you're not in the timekeeping business? You're the CEO of Rolex. He said, that's right. I'm in the jewelry business. So it's an interesting way of kind of remembering that sometimes you have to really think about, what business are you in? Who is your competition? What is it that's going to be important to talk about when you talk about your business and in your brand? The other thing that's important here when you think about your brand equities and what you can leverage is to not make the mistake that some very well-known, very good companies have made, like IBM. Years ago, IBM decided that while they had built an enormous business of selling mainframe computers, that there was a future in laptops. So they were going to, again, this goes back a number of years now, they were going to get into the laptop business. And so they developed this massive advertising campaign based around Charlie Chaplin to show that it was fun and easy and simple, and it absolutely bombed. the introduction of the IBM laptop was a total failure because it was so out of sync with what people understood the IBM brand to be. Again, remember, what you think about your brand is important. It's what your customer thinks, because your brand resides in your customer's mind. So the customers were thinking Big Blue, right? IBM. Nobody gets fired by buying IBM, right? It was about mainframe big computers. And to just come out a day later and say, no, we're fun and whimsical and laptop Charlie Chaplin kind of positioning just didn't work. So as you look at how your business may need to evolve or is evolving, where can you leverage equities and where do you have permission to go, right? What will customers say? Yeah, I could see them offering that. That makes perfect sense to me. For instance, a print shop in my area just sent me a thing the other day, sent me a promotional flyer where for the backdrops, right? For behind me here, you can buy this new screen and it has graphics on it and so on. So they said, hey, we're really good at printing things. We do brochures and pamphlets and flyers and so on. But maybe now we create this because there's a new demand for all these people that are now doing video conferences all day long, every day, it seems. The restaurant food wholesaler near me saw their business drop 90% with all the restaurants closing. So what did they do? They started selling their high-end gourmet food products door to door, right? Door to door delivery of their products to homes. I mean, even automakers are now manufacturing ventilators, right? Because they have a particular expertise that could be applied in a new way. So what might you be able to do in terms of strengths that you have? And are those strengths, in fact, things that your customers will say, yeah, that's a good fit. I could see that. I could see that connection, as opposed to the example I gave with IBM. Okay, next topic. When you do your assessment of what you're going to talk about, how you're going to describe your business to people, make sure that you're always keeping in mind the need to connect with them on a rational level and on an emotional level. While they're both critically important, of the two, emotional are always the stronger drivers. It doesn't matter which category, doesn't matter which country that we've done this research in, the emotional drivers are the stronger ones. So what are those rational and emotional drivers, those things that motivate your customers today, and have they in fact changed? Are they now different? The rational drivers are the things that get people to say, yeah, I'll consider you, right? We'd call within the consideration set, right? That's one of the products, one of the companies I would consider, because rationally they're checking off the things I need. But then emotionally, how does that make me feel, right? How does it feel to do business with them? And you've got to make sure that whatever you're doing in your communications are connecting with people both rationally and emotionally. I'll give you a little case study here. We were working with an organization a couple of years back, and they had been doing great. I mean, they were just killing it. They had record growth, 5-6 years of record-breaking results, and came to us and said, I think we're missing something. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're thrilled. We're very pleased with our success. But it just seems as though we're missing something here, that there's something more that we should be able to achieve. And they had done a lot of research. They were an organization that believed in talking to their customers and getting feedback on a regular basis. And they really had a great understanding of what people thought about them, how people use their services. This, in fact, was a financial services organization. But what they didn't quite understand was why those decisions were made, what emotionally was going on that drove those purchase decisions that their customers had. So we did a study for them and found that the things that really drove people to say, that's an organization I want to work with, that's who I want to put my money with, they were the emotional drivers. The rational were important, don't get me wrong, those were absolutely important, but it was the emotional drivers that really made the difference. So what I suggest you do is just make a list, right? Just get a pad, get some paper, and just say, okay, here's all the rational things that we offer to our customers. Here are the things that they find important that we deliver on. And then here on the other side, here's all the emotional things that we deliver. When they experience a relationship with us, when they buy our product, when they use our service, here's the emotional benefit that they get from that. So write them all down. And then once you have them, score them. How do you rate on those? Let's say on a scale of 1 to 10. how well do you do? So let's say on the first one, yeah, we're really good. I'd say we have an 8 out of 10 on that one. The second one, yeah, not so good. We got some work to do there. I'd give that one a 5, right? So score each of the rational attributes and each of the emotional attributes on, say, a 1 to 10 scale or a 1 to 7 scale, whatever you prefer. Then go back after you've done the ratings and do a ranking. Force yourself, this was a little harder, to say, okay, of all these rational attributes, here's the one that is the most important, and then the second most important, and then the third, and then do the same with the emotional. Maybe you look at that for a couple of your competitors and do the same thing. Now you've got a really clear understanding from your perspective what is most important to talk about when you go out to talk to customers or prospective customers. Now, what I do too, if you can, is go back and do this research among your customers or your prospective customers, right? Do some market research. Ask them to do the ratings. Ask them to do the rankings as well as yourself, and see where maybe their perceptions and yours are nicely aligned, or maybe they're a bit of a disconnect, right? Maybe what you're saying, oh yeah, we do really well on this, and you ask your customers to be honest with you, and they're like, no, not so much, not so much. So that's a really important step. Now, again, we have a technique that we use that quantifies all these and runs them through statistical analysis and really gives you a very, very finite picture of what your irrational and emotional drivers are. And you can correlate that, statistically correlate that right back to what's going to drive business results. And that's a great process that any company can use. But the other side of it is, well, maybe you start simpler. Maybe you simply do this among some of your customers today or your prospective customers. Maybe you do this with some of your suppliers. Maybe you do this with your employees and ask them the same types of questions. What are the rational benefits? What are the rational benefits or features and benefits that you enjoy by working with us? And what are the emotional features and benefits that you enjoy when you work with us? And maybe get some of those groups. Again, that doesn't cost you anything, right? Takes a little bit of time, but there's no cost involved. So there's kind of two extremes there, and there's plenty of places in between. But I really encourage you to figure out what those are, what those drivers are for your business. Then the other thing is, okay, now what do you say? Picture the old classic Pepsi challenge, right? What is the claim that you're going to make? X% more people prefer Pepsi over Coke. Powerful claim, right? What are the claims that you're making today? What are the claims that your competitors are making today? Grab your sheet, right? Write them all down. Write down what those are. And from that, you have to ask yourself, are you giving people sufficient reason to even consider you and to choose you and stay loyal to you? Are your claims competitive or not? This could be a great time. Again, now that you're not perhaps working in the business, you can work on your business. You can really take this time to review your list of claims, look at your competitors, what they're saying. And again, very simple, easy step. Go through their materials, go through their website, look at whatever your competition puts out there into the world about their business, and then do the same for yours. And understand how those stories, again, connect rationally and emotionally, connect with the new customer journey that these people are going through, and how are you differentiating yourself? What is it that at the end of the day separates you, differentiates you, is memorable, right? It has to be memorable. And is it motivating? Does it speak to some core need that these people have? So that would be the next tip. Now, suppose you don't have a point of difference. Suppose you look at your service offerings and say, well, all my competitors could say the same thing. So what do I do if I don't have a tangible point of difference? Real simple. Make one up. And I don't mean that as a silly thing. Make one up. But be honest. You have to be honest. It has to be truthful. People demand that you're genuine in what you're having to say about your product or about your service. And you see in the picture here, I used an example of my first experience with this when I was working at Procter & Gamble on the Folgers coffee brand. And Folgers coffee was promoted as mountain-grown Folgers, right? Mountain-grown coffee, the richest, most aromatic kind of coffee. Well, what was that? It was because we didn't have necessarily a tangible, demonstrated point of difference. I mean, that's great if you have them. If your product works twice as fast, 10 times more powerful, whatever, those are great to have those tangible points of difference. But if you don't, An emotional difference can be every bit as compelling, maybe even more compelling. The other beauty of developing a point of difference on an emotional level, on a non-tangible level, is they're very, very hard for the competition to take away. I mean, suppose I'm gonna look at the classic battery, Duracell and Energizer, right? Last for 4 hours. Oh, now we last for 5. Well, now we last for 6. Well, now we last for 7. Well, now and it's a continual almost race to the bottom there. Every time you have this tangible point of difference, and then somebody else comes along with something slightly better. We can, our product cuts through this in 2 minutes. Well, this one does it now in 1 minute and 50 seconds. So, those tangible points of difference are very, very hard to sustain. An emotional point of difference that's, again, grounded in something that has a real motivating benefit to it, right? That has a real motivating benefit behind it, is something that can be kept forever and something you can leverage for years and years and years. I mean, once Folgers said, "We are mountain grown coffee." Now, here's another quick fun backstory. Coffee doesn't grow anywhere but in mountain regions, right? Coffee doesn't grow at sea level. Coffee doesn't grow in bogs. Coffee doesn't grow in desert. Coffee grows on mountains, in mountainous regions. That's the only place coffee grows. But Folgers said, "We are the mountain grown coffee. We are the richest, most aromatic kind of coffee because we're mountain grown." They said it first, they said it loudest, they said it consistently, and they owned it. Now, could anyone else come along and advertise or promote their coffee as mountain grown? Of course not. All they would be doing is driving sales to Folgers. Folgers now own that. That was a point of difference that nobody could take away. So don't worry if you're, don't have this hard, tangible point of difference. The emotional ones can be very, very powerful. And in fact, sometimes even more powerful. Now, let's talk about your brand positioning, right? So what is your brand positioning? Your brand positioning it's not a tagline, it's not a slogan, it's not a mission statement. Your brand positioning is the guide that you should use to develop all of your communications about your organization. It's a simple equation. It's, where do you see your organization going? Where do you see your business going in the future? What are the perceptions that exist, again, in the mind of your customers today? And then what are the attributes that you can leverage right now? The rational and emotional attributes that you can use to build your business right now. Those three things form your positioning. What's really hard for people is your brand positioning. It's not about everything you can say about your business. It's about the one thing that you must say about your business. And why is it so important to have that one thing? Because people are just bombarded today with so much information. There's a recent study said 5,000 advertisements a day is what people are confronted with. The average attention span right now is a new study out just recently from, I think it was Microsoft. They said the average American's attention span is 8 seconds. And to put that into perspective, they also found that the average attention span of a goldfish was 9 seconds. A little humbling, I know. So anyway, the point is you've got to capture people's attention. You've got to have a single-minded brand positioning, which you convey clearly and consistently. And you've got to have a positioning that touches people's hearts and their heads, rational and emotional. Here's a tip for you. As you develop what your brand positioning is going to be, and you want to get this down to a short descriptive statement or even a word, right? A single word maybe. But start long form, start big. Write paragraphs if you want, write half a page if you want about who you are and what you do and what value you provide and who you attract, and write long form, and then start to narrow it down, and then narrow it down again, and then cut it in half and narrow it down again until you get it down to one simple, clear statement. Maybe even, again, as I said, a single word. A way to test yourself when you have that done, again, back to my pad, write that statement down, write your positioning statement down, put it down, set it aside, wait 5 minutes, and then see if you can repeat it. If you can't, you're not there yet. Keep working. And then once you get it where you like it, do the same thing. Show it to somebody. Say, here, I want you to read this. All right, I want you to read it again. And then put it away. Talk to them for a while and then say, by the way, tell me, do you remember what our brand positioning was? And see if they can remember. Is it that clear? For example, Apple is all about innovation. Down to a single word, innovation. Disney, I talked about earlier. Their positioning, preserving the magic of childhood. Magical in one word for them, but preserving the magic of childhood. A USAA insurance is about service. We serve those who serve. So that's what you want to do. That's what you want to create for your business as well, is that single positioning, so that every time people are exposed to your brand, whatever it is and whatever form it is, whenever they think about your company, they're having that single impression because they don't have a lot of time, attention, and there's so many other messages they're getting hit with. So make yours very, very single-minded, very clear, very consistent. The other thing I can tell you on positioning is there's really only 5 basic areas, 5 fundamental options, from a positioning that's very tangible, like a Amazon.com, where it's all about what your company delivers, what you have, what your infrastructure is, to the very intangible, like an organization like the American Red Cross, where it's all about their mission. It's all about why they do what they do. And then there's others in between. Now, there's no single best niche, but they're all different. They're all unique, and they all mean something that's right for that particular business. So define your own niche, define and own your niche, right? So if you see that, for instance, you're in how do you do it, right? How you do it, your approach, like a Ritz-Carlton, where their positioning is ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. Beautiful positioning statement. You get an image immediately of what that can mean. And no one else is in that space. Their competitors are in other areas of either personality or products and services or infrastructure. So they came up with a positioning place on that spectrum that was very unique and very differentiating for them. So determine which of your attributes, determine which of your features and benefits would best position your company, and then look at where your competition is and make sure that you have a positioning that resonates not only emotionally and rationally, but differentiates yourself versus the competition. All right, third step, create a brand communication guide. And again, this is so that every dollar you spend, every investment you make in your marketing can be more effective. The communication strategy is simply, in our view, a single-page document. It's where you take all that understanding you developed of the market and your competition and your brand equities and your brand positioning, and you distill it down into a single page. One page where everybody can reference it. And it's not just about, this is not about just creating advertising. This is about your website. This is responses to your social media. This is how you interact with people. This is everything, every touch point that your business has with not only your customers, but with your employees as well, right? And because until you do this, until you have this communication strategy kind of laid out for yourself, then every time you do marketing or promotions or social media, you're going to be wasting money because you're going to be telling stories and going in different directions that aren't synergistic. One isn't building on the next, one isn't helping the other, and you're wasting money in the process. Remember the old story of John Wanamaker, the famous Philadelphia retailer, who said, I know that half of my money spent in advertising is wasted. The problem is I don't know which half. Right? Well, this is a way to make sure that as much of that investment that you make in advertising or promotions or social media is working as effectively as you can by really having a clear strategy before you start creating any of those messages. So the components that you want to have in your creative brief are things that really your customers want to know. It's what they want to hear about. And this becomes your blueprint, right? This is so that when you go to create something, you can say, yep, did that. Oop, got to remember to add that in. Oh, have to take that out. It's not in the brief. You need to take it out. So what is it your customers want to know? Who are you? Who are you as an organization? What do you stand for? What makes you unique, and why are you a better choice? Why should I invest? Why should I give my money to you versus the company down the street? So those are the basic components of what you want to have in your brief. The actual items, right? So as we create these briefs for our clients, we always start with what's the end benefit, right? We're not in this world of marketing and branding just for the sake of marketing and branding. We're doing marketing and branding to build businesses, to have a tangible business outcome, a business growth, a business benefit. So start your brief by, well, why are we doing this? What is the end benefit that I want? What is the desired business outcome at the end of the day when we do this? Start with that. Then who am I talking to? as narrowly as you can. Who is this target audience? Really define it, not just demographics, but demographics plus, their attitudes, their beliefs, their feelings, really psychographics, if you can get into all of that, is not necessary, but again, narrowly as you can define that target audience, the better. Who's your competition, right? So as you're creating these communications, these expressions of your business, you're doing it again within the framework of what else is going on out there, because you're not doing any of this in a vacuum, right? You're in a competitive world. Next is brand character. Now, brand character is simply, think of your brand as a person. How would you describe your brand if it were a person? Use personality descriptors. They're funny, they're friendly, they're courteous, they're strict, they're demanding, they're, however you would define a person in those kinds of words, describe your brand in that way too. Probably, no more than 3 to 5 words to try and capture that sense of who this brand is. Your brand equities we talked about before, right? Your rational and emotional features and benefit. And the ones that are the top, right? The ones that you ranked high and the ones you rated high, right? Those are the ones that want to make appear in your brief. The others you have to forget about. Positioning, we covered positioning, right? Get that one statement down in your brief. Your key messages is there one thing or maybe 2 things that in addition to your basic positioning you really want to say? Because remember, positioning is not ad copy. Positioning is not language that you're going to use verbatim, perhaps in anything. Outside of your own team, maybe a customer never sees your positioning. They see your tagline, they see your key messages, but they might not ever read your positioning. It's your blueprint, right? Remember that? It's not the actual words necessarily. Tone, what's the tone of this communication? How should you present? Should your company look, again, very serious or very whimsical? Should it be fun or should it be, how should it frame up? How should it feel when you look at that? What's the overall tone of your communication? And then is there anything mandatory? Maybe a legal issue, maybe a disclaimer that you have to have for legal reasons. Some businesses don't need that at all. But those are the elements. Those are all the elements of your creative brief. So just to start wrapping up here, branding is business building, and it's business building that works. It's a process that works. These 3 steps I just gave you today, take your business through these steps, particularly now as things are changing so much. Do them, you can do them on a shoestring budget, you can do them quick and easy, or you can do them, very methodically and through processes and working with other organizations that specialize in this thing, or somewhere in between. But the process works. It's good whether you're in the B2B or B2C environment. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, what category you're in, what country you're in. And if you have any questions, as you're thinking about this and maybe reviewing this, if you have questions, by all means, feel free and reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer some questions for you. I have used this process for 35 plus years now and have had tremendous success working with my teams to double, triple, quadruple businesses in short periods of time. And you can do the same. You can definitely do the same. And again, not just my opinion, but there was a McKinsey Interbrand study. We're waiting for the newest version to come out, but this one showed up to 2014. Companies that invest in their brands have much, much higher total return on shareholder value than those that don't. And the gap is getting bigger and bigger as the years go on. 73% greater advantage in the last study in 2014. Just to put a finer point on this, they looked at, and there's a whole bunch of companies they did. I just picked one, Coca-Cola. $7 billion is the estimated value of their tangible assets, their plant, their equipment, their trucks, their vending machines, and so on. $7 billion in value. But their brand has an estimated value of $84 billion in the brand. They could lose every plant that they have could crumble to the ground tomorrow, and they would still have $84 billion of value to bring that organization back. So as you invest in your brand, you're building long-term value for your overall business. And again, as I say, you can do this. You can apply these 3 steps to your business. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you do have to be diligent. You have to be persistent. You got to be honest with yourself, right? We always tell clients, look, we're going to help you confront the unfiltered truths here. If there's something that's kind of not the way it should be, or not, as pretty as it should be, or downright ugly about your business or your brand, we're going to tell you. We're going to expose that. because what do they say? Turtle never makes any progress until he sticks his neck out. So stick your neck out a little bit and confront this stuff. Be honest about it. If it's a problem, say it's a problem and let's deal with it. The other one, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So don't think you have to do all of this at once. Take it a step at a time, because each piece that you complete, you'll be better off than you were the day before. And just keep getting better and keep getting better. So I promised a couple bonuses for those who joined today. If you'd like, we have a 1-minute brand assessment tool. Literally, it's a questionnaire that takes 1 minute. We use this internally for organizations to get a sense of how their brand is resonating with their staff. Be happy to send that to you. Just go into the chat or send me an email. I'll give you my email address here, and I'll send you a copy of that 1-minute brand assessment tool. For a limited number of people on a first come, first serve basis, we're offering a 30-minute one-on-one consultation with me. So if you're interested in that, again, send me an email. And again, it's first come, first serve on that one. And again, we will be doing more of these marketing and branding leader knowledge summits. So I invite you to keep coming back, listening to other experts that we'll be bringing on to help you help your business, help you to grow your business. So thanks very much, everyone. Delighted to have you with us. Stay safe. Take care.